Okay, a researcher is determining the effects of two supplements, supplement A and supplement B, and constructed a confidence interval. The 93% confidence interval for a difference between the population's mean, supplement A minus B, is this. So they went A minus B, and they told me that it gave me an interval of 3.143 plus or minus 1.170. Now, what does that mean? Well, first off, let's go ahead and draw that. We know that we're going to have a lower bound and an upper bound for any confidence interval. And we also know they're all two tails, so they're always going to be not equal. And this is going to be centered on 3.143. So that's my center. So this is my X bar. That's where I got that from. So this is X bar. And then we're going to go, you know what? Let's take that 3.143 and see if we can't find our lower bound. So 3.143 minus 1.170. And we end up with a lower bound of 1.973. If I take the 3.143 and I add 1.170, I end up getting 4.313. So this is my lower and this is my upper. All right. So when I look at this, it's like, okay, we know what this means. Now we have a lower bound and an upper bound. And it says, based on the confidence interval, what conclusions should make about the hypothesis test? I'm like, well, what was the hypothesis test? Well, we're probably going to need to look at this and go, you know what, the null would be for any time would be mu A equals mu B. And since it's a confidence interval, the alternative would be mu A does not equal mu B. All right. So when I look at this, I see that 0 is not contained. So 0 is not contained in the interval. And what else do I notice? I notice that this is positive and this is positive. And the interval is positive. So A is greater than B. Now, I don't know what is greater than at. I have no idea. The problem didn't tell me this. All I know is 0 is not contained because this would be, this minus this would be equal to 0. Another way of saying this is they're equal to 0. Well, that's not true. They're not equal. So that's not the case. So the interval is positive, so A is greater than B. So that's what we decided there. All right, so that answers part A. What type of error may have been committed? Well, remember, if this is equal, it'd be mu of A minus mu of B equals 0. Well, that's not the case. We already said that's not the case. So we rejected that, which means we believe that there's a difference. All right. We believe that there's a difference. So we rejected the null because 0 is not in the interval. Because we rejected the only type of error would be a type 1. We reject type 1. Okay, if we reject with type 1, and the reason we reject it is because 0 was not in the interval. In other words, our plausible values are 1.97 to 4.3. Anything in between there is possible. Anything outside of it is not possible. And 0 is somewhere over here, so we're above it. And because we're above it, A must have been bigger than B. All right, if we'd been negative, then B would have been bigger than A. But regardless, we reject it. So that's number 5. Question number 6, similar type problem. A researcher is determining the effects of fertilizers and the 98% confidence interval for the difference 0.743 to plus or minus 1.05. So what we have here is we have C minus D. And I'll go ahead and draw what this is going to look like. And what we see is we're centered at 0.743. This is my X bar. And now we're going to try to figure out my lower bound and my upper bound. Remember, all confidence intervals are not equal to. So we're going to take our interval and we have 0.743 plus or minus 1.005. So that means my lower bound is going to be 0.743 minus 1.005. That'll be my lower because I subtracted. And my upper is going to be, I'll just do that below, is 0.743 plus 1.005. 0.743 minus 1.005 equals negative 0.262. So this is negative 0.262. That's my lower bound. And my upper bound is going to be 0.743 plus 1.005. And that gives me an upper bound of 1.748. So there's my upper. All right. So anything between here and here is a possible answer. All right. So if I said, hey, is 1 a possible answer? You're like, yeah, it is. Is 0 a possible answer? Yes, it is. Is 2 a possible answer? You're like, no, 2's up there. 2 is not possible. Is negative 1? No, negative 1 is down here. It's not possible. So anything in between is possible. Everything outside of it we consider to be not possible. So based on the confidence interval, what should the researcher make the hypothesis test? Well, what would have been my hypothesis test? Well, we would have gone, you know what? The mu of C equals the mu of D. And the alternative, because it's the two-tail, mu of C does not equal the mean of D. All right? Now, another way of writing this is to say mu C minus mu D equals 0. In other words, there is no difference, because if they're equal, there's no difference. So in this case, 0 lies in the interval, right? So because 0 is in the interval, we do not detect a difference in fertilizer in other words, they're equal, and you can say that they're equal. And not detecting would mean saying they're equal and would fail to reject the null. Right? So that's part A. We'd fail to reject the null. Because 0 is in the interval, we do not detect a difference. In other words, they're equal, right? We say that they're equal. Part B. Part B says, what type of error may have been committed? Oh, we failed to reject. So the only type of error would be a type 2. Failed to, type 2. All right, so that concludes this video. Thank you.